Hello, and thanks for joining us today to learn more about the UCEAP Dublin Summer Physics Program. We're going to hear first from Professor Pádraig Dunn from University College Dublin, and he'll have a presentation, and then afterwards we'll be available to answer any questions you have. Zoom captions are enabled, and we are recording this information session. Thank you.
Okay, so good morning, everybody, or good afternoon as it is in Dublin. You're welcome to the Dublin part of this summer program exploration with UCEAP. So my name is Professor Pádraig Dunn, Pádraig, and I'm a professor in the School of Physics, and I've been running this program for about a decade, along with Antonio Benedetto, who's not here at the moment, but who is going to UCLA next week and may bump into some of you on campus. So what I want to do is just talk you through our program for 2025, not in too much detail, but in enough detail maybe to let you ask questions afterwards, and the answers then will hopefully be recorded and be valuable for other students who aren't here at the moment. So let me just click here. So this is roughly what I'm just going to talk about briefly. UCD, a bit of history there, a bit of history about Dublin, mention of a social program, what it's like living on campus, just a brief overview of the academic program, and then the idea will be then that you'll be able to ask questions about what's next and how to prepare for applying and all of that, and traveling, etc., to the program. And before that, there's a brief video here which I hope you'll be able to watch and hear. It's just a kind of a promo video for UCD Dublin in Ireland. So there's a brief promo, and that'll be on the recorded video for people to watch. Oh, that's not what I want to do. So this is what I want to do. I want to tell you about UCD first of all. So UCD is a kind of a modern campus. It was kind of formed in the 1950s and 60s. It's about 330 acres, and it's a few miles out of the city centre. It's very well connected by bus, easy to get in and out, and the students who come every summer find that a very useful aspect. And it's on the air coach from the airport. It's about 40 minutes from the airport in typical traffic. It's the largest university in Ireland. It's got about 33,000 students, of whom 28,000 are on campus during term. About 25% of them are international students. In the summertime, the number drops, of course, because the undergraduates don't do many summer programs on campus. They typically disappear off elsewhere. The history of the university, founded originally, the forefather or foreparent of the university was founded in 1854 as the Catholic University of Ireland, and it went through various iterations and became the National University of Ireland early in the 20th century. And it's got quite a distinguished contribution to civic and political life in Ireland. 3 of the 9 presidents of Ireland and 6 of the prime ministers have been either staff on the campus or graduates of the university. But it's a thoroughly modern campus now, with very modern facilities in terms of accommodation, sports, academic facilities. And it's mainly green parkland with lots of football pitches and other surfaces to play sport upon. And there's a running track and a swimming pool, as we'll see in a moment. Dublin is a medieval city. It's over 1,000 years in existence, documented. It's been home to Vikings and Normans and British Empire and Irish state. Prior to the Vikings, there was probably some settlement along the River Liffey, but the details of that are fairly slim. So that was over 1,000 years ago, the Vikings first set up in Dublin. And Dublin is a busy city with lots of concerts and social events and music, and there's always stuff going on. And the nightlife ranges from sort of pub music to nightclubs and dance venues and things like that. Usually in town, it's pretty busy in the evenings, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and sometimes Wednesdays, Tuesdays, Mondays, and Sundays as well. And then just outside the city, there's mountains to the south and the sea is to the east. You can swim in the sea. There's nice beaches nearby. There's beautiful walks in the mountains. And there's a lot of kind of large popular gardens from the Victorian era and later than that. Ireland itself is a small island sitting in the Atlantic Ocean just off the west coast of Europe. The northeastern part is part of the United Kingdom, and the rest is the Republic of Ireland. But it's all green and very beautiful scenery, and the people are pretty relaxed and friendly and welcoming and used to tourists, very used to American visitors. Most people in Ireland will have somebody living who's related to them in the US, or even immediate family gone to the US. And most Irish people would have taken holidays or worked abroad in the US. So there's a real familiarity and affinity between Irish people and the United States, citizens of the US. There's very nice weekend trips and day trips away. The Wild Atlantic Way is all down the west coast. And there's lots of interesting sort of scenery and things to take in there. And then there's huge evidence of settlement in Ireland for the last 10,000, 11,000 years. There's prehistoric sites, early medieval sites, Norman sites, Viking sites, British Empire sites. There's all sorts of historic places to see and visit. And there's a really good chance that if you have Irish roots, you'll be able to trace them in the country. And every summer, there's usually at least one or two students who are investigating their heritage, the Irish bit of their heritage while they're here. So in the social program, typically we run a day trip to the Cliffs of Moher, where people can go and explore the highest cliffs in Western Europe, really the highest vertical cliffs in Western Europe. There's a day trip to a farm called Causey Farm, which involves bogs and cooking and small animals and things like that. It's kind of a unique Irish type experience. It's very good. We usually go for a walk in the evenings. They call it the grand stretch in the evening when the summer gets brighter. The evenings are bright. It's bright until 11 p.m. more or less in midsummer when you're just after you arrive here. Usually we have a Céilí, which is an Irish dancing party. We have a cinema nights for Ireland, and there's a sport on Kickmore. So how far can you hit a ball? Basically, an old-fashioned Irish kicking competition. So there's all these sort of social programs which are very unique to the country, and you definitely feel the difference when you're here compared to being at home. It's like traveling anywhere. When you travel far, you find different things. On campus, then you'll be probably 10 minutes walk from the residences to where the academic work is going on in the center, the O'Brien Centre for Science, all on the same campus, all pedestrianised walkways. You're staying in single ensuite bedrooms with shared kitchen and dining facilities in there, but you get your 2 meals a day provided for you in the main building, this O'Brien Centre for Science, where the academic teaching goes on. So you get dining is there for lunch and dinner. When you get your room, it's randomly allocated and there's no real opportunity to swap. But you'll be close to your friends, either in the same block or within blocks within a couple of minutes walk. So you won't be far from anybody, if you come with people, We typically organize 2 meals a day. I say typically because the odd day we might just do lunch if there's an evening off or it's a long bank holiday weekend and you're traveling. And again, typically 5 days a week, except for bank holidays, where either Monday or Friday or perhaps both, you don't get meals because you won't be on campus. You'll be off somewhere else traveling. And every year what we do is we get student representatives together and they meet the people who provide the catering in the kitchen, the chef and his team or her team, and they discuss and improve the food to suit the students during the 2 months of the program, because typically people's needs evolve during the time you're here. And most students comment on the fact that the food is different when they arrive, but it's a positive difference in general. They quite enjoy the basic simple ingredients and the food, which is well prepared. In the university, this UCD would probably be the leading Irish university for sports. I think last year, of the team that went to the Olympics in Paris, 37 were either UCD students or alumni. Out of that was probably 30% of the whole team from Ireland, and so there'll be all sorts of different sports represented. But we have a 50-meter, a nice Olympic-sized pool, but it's not an Olympic standard pool because it doesn't have the audience space. The water and the facilities are Olympic standard. We have a fully fitted gym with lots of workstations for people to be at, not that crowded in the summer in particular. There's lots of hockey pitches, soccer pitches, rugby pitches, Gaelic football pitches, AstroTurf and grass. There's a full running track, which is to European international standard. So there's access to all these facilities if you come as a student on campus, and you can just book and organize to use them. In the physics part of the program then, so you've got to Dublin, Ireland, you've got to Dublin, you've got to UCD, you're exploring the campus. The program itself, it's a very much an in-person environment. We have in-person lectures and review conversations afterwards with staff. There's tutorials in person where you work in small groups, and there's laboratories in person where you work in pairs. The reason we say in person is because it's still a blended experience, because there's a online supportive environment through Canvas. The book is Jane Coley's physics book. It's a core text by Pearson, and it's got Mastering Physics loaded up into Canvas to support it, which is an interactive tool that you can use to help do exercises, get feedback, solve problems, etc. And then in class, some of the lecturers use Socrative to do instant feedback and to assess the rate of learning and things like that, and to let students contribute and share answers. The program does not grade to a curve. You are only competing against yourself. And typically students are shocked by the fact that you get percentages back, like 73% and 79%, but an A- starts at 70% and an A starts at 80% and an A+ starts at 90% in the UCD system. So the grades are what matters more than the numbers. But every year there's a shock in the beginning when people get a laboratory practical exercise back and they got 7.5 out of 10 and they're wondering what they can do to improve. But that's still an A-. So, and then those grades get transferred into a UCEAP, a UC grade back in the UC campus. And the way the program is broken down, the tutorials are responsible in each of the 2 quarters that you take. The tutorials are 15%, the laboratories are 25%, the midterm exam, it's an MCQ, is 10%, and the final exam then is 50%. And that exam is a mixture of essay and written exam answers, questions and answers, and MCQ. That gives you your final grade of 100%. There's 2 quarters, each one is graded separately. So you get two grades go back to UC for each student. And that's how the grading is reported then. You get 2 grades into your transcript. And on a typical day, you'd have lectures and review between 9 and 10:30, or maybe 10:45, depending on how the conversation goes. You have tutorials between 11 and 1, maybe 11:30 to 1, depending on the day. Labs on some days go in the afternoon from 2 to 5, 1400, 1700 to 3-hour laboratories. And in that laboratory, you do all your work, you write up the report, you hand it in, you leave, and you're finished with the lab. There's no work afterwards on the laboratory unless you choose to do more. The program is pretty rigorous. You're asked to do, you end up doing about 30 hours per week, inclusive of the independent study kind of hours and homeworks and stuff. We don't generally grade homeworks. We hand out homeworks for you to do and discuss among yourselves as students in order to improve your learning, but we don't grade them. The whole idea of the program is that you learn in teams, because you're not competing with each other. You're just trying to improve your learning. And we encourage a highly social learning environment where you work in pairs, in labs, in threes, in tutorials, and you are encouraged to ask questions and interact in lectures and afterwards as much as possible. So they are the slides that I wanted to present to you. And I suppose it's over to you now for questions. So I'll stop sharing the screen, perhaps.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Am I sharing any more?
Yes, you're sharing still.
Okay. It's not giving me the option to stop sharing. That's odd. Anyway, so yeah, I see that. Can you stop me sharing? Is that possible?
Let's see here. I'm looking.
Because when I click on that, I see share. Hang on. There we go.
While we're trying to sort
That's
through
it now.
it did.
Done.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Does anyone
Here's
have
the
any
Zoom.
questions? You could ask it in the Q&A or in the chat. I've added into the chat our program page, so you can learn more about this program available to UC Irvine, UCLA students. We have one question. What are the start and end dates of this program? And is there an estimated budget and cost for it?
So I can
Okay.
answer the start and end date, but I can't estimate the budget and cost. So we start on June 16th, which is a Monday, and that means you'd arrive on the 15th or the 14th, Saturday or Sunday. And we finish on August the 8th, which is a Friday, but that day has the final exam of the second module on it. So you wouldn't want to plan to depart until the 9th.
And on the link I just added to the chat, it has a cost subpage, and you can go in there and enter your campus and your status as a UC student. So since this is a UCEAP program, your fees are actually paid to the University of California, and we have a finance department here in our office. And that's why you can go to the cost calculator on our webpage.
So if I could probably add, last year we had 32 students, I think, from UCLA, and I think they generally enjoyed the program and got good grades and worked hard. Usually the way the students rank things are, the program is fine, it's physics, they get through it, they get their credits. UCD, they like a lot, and the accommodation and the food. Ireland comes out very popular. They really like Ireland. They really like the fact that they can get out of Ireland easily by taking an airplane to anywhere in Europe. And the top of the charts is really Dublin as a place to spend a summertime. It's a very, generally Dublin's a friendly city. I mean, every city has its population diversities in all sorts of ways. Dublin's a very friendly city, very American friendly. People are very used to Americans. And you'll usually be asked, where are you from? And they start telling you they have a cousin in Texas or something. It always happens. The general Dublin people are very American friendly, I think. And I see the question there is invited to wait. Those two questions are definitely not questions for me, so I'll leave them to you guys in the UCAP.
Yeah,
Okay, well, go ahead, Amber. Thank you.
I can take the first one. Is it advisable to do the summer program after our freshman year, or should I wait? As you'll hear me say often, it depends. And Amy might share that advising as well. I think it really does depend on the student and your major, whether classes that you have to take, how you did during your freshman year. So this will be 2 quarters worth of physics from your home campus. I'm not looking at the articulations, but it should essentially be physics part A and physics part B that you would complete at UC Dublin. I would say UCD, and we have a Davis campus, so sometimes that can be confusing, at Dublin, and then you would come back to your home campus and finish part C. So looking at that fall quarter when you come back, is it feasible for you to plug in physics part C along with whatever other courses that you have to take? But I would say most of the students that participate, I think, are going from their sophomore year into their junior year. I would say a bulk of the students that we see participating on the program are in sophomore standing going into junior standing. But certainly a student who's completed their freshman year going into their sophomore year is eligible for the program. And I would just encourage that student to really think about, how did that freshman year go? Am I performing the way that I want to in my science courses? Did I get my math? Usually by that time you've taken math and general chemistry, maybe general biology as well. But certainly, did you get the calculus grades that you were expecting? Have you started to fine tune and hone your UC study skills and your test exam ability, your assessment ability? Are those things, are you feeling like you're fine tuning those and reining those in, or do you feel like you need a little bit more time before you would engage in accelerated curriculum, right? You're going to be doing a quarter's worth of coursework in 4 weeks. And so for some students, they find that to be a very successful way for them to engage with science courses. They're doing kind of only physics for 4 weeks. It's the only thing you're doing, academically speaking. Other students maybe don't feel quite as ready to go into that accelerated curriculum and then would benefit from another year of studies before doing so. So I think it depends. And I came from Riverside. That was my home campus before joining UCEAP. And so at Riverside, I definitely would see the older student, the student going into their junior year, done with their sophomore year, participating in this program, because I think that was just more consistent with where the UCR community would be at. But I see that I have Bonnie and Kelly here from Irvine and LA, so I'd like to hear from you all, since you're all joined up on camera and mic'd in now. So I'd like to hand that over to you, since these are Irvine and LA students. Are there themes and trends that are the same or different than what I shared?
So Bonnie, can you go ahead and start us off, please?
And so this was in terms of academics. I was focused on the financial aid part, but I can share.
I'm so sorry. Yeah,
That's okay.
just in terms of, and you don't have to reiterate everything I said, but for a freshman thinking about this program, a freshman kind of finishing their freshman year, going into their sophomore year, is that the types of it depends advising? Does that echo for Irvine and LA students, or is there anything that might be different for your populations that I didn't think about, kind of still being more mindful of the Riverside students that I've worked with?
Yeah, that's definitely the case. And I would say, and, encouraging you to go to the school of your major, to talk to biology or pharm sci or public health, whatever major you are. Because in some cases it's also about your plan. When, should you be taking physics? I feel like we have a mix of students going right after freshman year and right after sophomore year. That's those two. The right after freshman year students then both have, the ability to take other courses, and when they come back during their sophomore year or during their junior year after they've done their physics. For the Dublin program UCI students, you fulfill Physics 3A-B or Physics 7C and 7E, and no labs. So you have to just coordinate that piece. Okay, sometimes it is better to go right after freshman year. You have a little more time then to complete your labs and potentially go abroad again, go to Ireland for a whole year, because now you've discovered that you love it and you've tried this out. So a lot of times if you're able to make it work that first step, right after freshman year, it works for you.
Yeah, hello everyone. So for UCLA students, I would say it depends on by when you need to complete the physics introductory series. So sometimes, or a lot of times it's a prereq for courses, other courses that you have to take. So just understanding that. So meeting with an advisor is a good idea. Is it pressing for you to have it done, your second year, or can it wait for that summer after your second year? So I would say based on that is how students should choose when to participate. But we do see students, like Amber was saying, do it and succeed after their first year, and they feel sufficiently prepared academically for it. So perhaps it's a question of timing and knowing yourself.
I can also address the question someone asked: would you recommend students who have never taken a physics class to apply to this program? And I imagine it's the same at UCLA and at UC Irvine. So the main thing to note is you cannot duplicate credit. So as long as you have not already taken the equivalent of whatever the equivalent courses would be for you. So at UCI, if you haven't already taken Physics 3A or B or Physics 7C or E, then you can participate on this program. And that could be whether you took it at UCI, at a community college, in high school, AP exam scores. All of those things count. You just cannot duplicate. If you've already received credit for any of that, you should consider a different program that's offering you different levels of physics and not these repeat ones.
Yeah, that's probably. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Pork.
I was just going to say, if I could add to that, the program is aimed at people who haven't done physics before, because it starts with mechanics and other introductory topics. So the way your physics is structured, these are typically, we're covering the first 2 quarters of the 3 in a sequence for whichever college you're coming from. And so, yeah, it's aimed at starting at 0. And
yep.
Lots of students come who haven't done physics since something in high school, which was well pre-AP physics. So that's the way we teach it. Your maths is a more important requirement than the physics.
Yep, that's what I was going to add. The prereq for the program is having the 2 quarters worth of calculus. Some students might even take a year of calculus depending on their major, and getting C's or above in those courses. That's definitely the foundation of all sciences, but certainly the foundation of physics is having those math skills. But there's not an expectation that you've taken high school physics, maybe not AP physics, but I know some high schools offer a physics class, and that's not the expectation that you've had some introductory coursework. We will offer that to you in the program, taking, as Bonnie mentioned, essentially those part A, part B, and then coming back and completing part C, or if you're an Irvine student, also tacking on those labs. So I guess we'll go back. I appreciate you jumping forward, Bonnie. I was thinking about, those questions do connect. So thank you for that. Let's go back to the financial aid. Will financial aid cover this program? I think that's the question that yourself and Kelly came online to help us answer.
So I put a little information there. And so for UCI, I do believe it's different for UCLA. Unfortunately, financial aid, free aid is not the greatest during the summer terms. So if you depend highly on financial aid to study abroad in the summer, it's going to be likely mostly loans, which is fine too. I took loans when I studied abroad. So just keep that in mind. And then I put a link in there for UC Irvine's page that explains a little bit more about financial aid funding.
Yeah, similarly, the financial aid office will always give you financial aid to do this program. Your exact situation will depend on your FAFSA. So the financial aid office can provide an estimate, but not until after January when you have submitted your FAFSA, which is due in March. That's the priority deadline. However, we do find in the summer it tends to be loan heavy because the Cal grant's not available and any grants under the Blue and Gold Opportunity Plan are not available. But that said, you do have some time to plan for it. So students get creative. They save money from their part-time job. They apply to scholarships. So look at our resources on our website so that you can be ready and you don't have to necessarily accept all of the loans that they're proposing to you.
I suspect we'll have more financial aid questions, but for the moment, we'll move on to another academic question. Is there a minimum of 12 units that they need to take at Dublin, or is it possible to only focus on the physics courses? And that's a great question because at some UC campuses, they consider 12 units to be full-time in the summer. Some UC campuses consider 9 to be full-time in the summer, and some it's 8. And there probably are other variations in there as well that I didn't mention. And so for this program, you would only be taking the 2 physics courses, and that's going to be considered full-time for our program. You could ask your home campus about concurrent enrollment if that is something you were thinking of doing, but you're going to see a lot of, I don't recommend that head shakes from the advisors and the faculty instructors on this call. This is a full-time, rigorous, accelerated or compressed program where you're doing 20 weeks of physics over 8 weeks. And so we consider that a full-time experience, plus your opportunities for social engagement or local travel, experiencing the local culture. So we would not recommend considering taking or asking your college to take any type of additional coursework on top of the program. And UC Dublin is not going to be offering you additional coursework on top of this program. It's the 2 physics courses plus labs. And then would you consider the pace and the rigor to be too intense for someone who knows nothing about physics? Do you want to start with that, Jorg, and then I can jump in?
Yeah, I mean, it's an intense program, but it's the only thing you're studying for the 8 weeks. And I think you're in the same boat with all your classmates. Okay, some have done a little bit of physics before maybe, or some are, older or whatever, but no, it's intense and it's full on, but it's not too intense because people do very well. UC students tend to come here, work hard, have a good social life as well, do a bit of travel and achieve well in the program. I think all those things are mutually compatible. So I don't think it's too much. I think it's doable, but it's hard work. And at times it does stress builds in week 2. And then it kind of fades in week 3, builds a bit in week 4, fades again in week 5, builds a bit in week 6, fades in week 7, builds in week 8. And then all of a sudden, boom, it's August and you're going home again or going somewhere else. So yeah, no, it's not too intense. It's just, it's intense enough, but not too much so.
Yeah, I agree with that. And most UC campuses teach summer curriculum where they're doing 2 5-week sessions. And so you might find things like chemistry, organic chemistry, general biology are offered at your home campuses, and they're doing those 10 weeks down in that 5-week. So what we're offering you at Dublin very closely mirrors a UC experience in terms of taking the curriculum and compressing that down to fit an appropriate summer term. And so it's obviously geographically different, and you're going to get an international experience. And there's a lot more that comes with the program. But in terms of looking at, 2 courses in 8 weeks, not to say that your campus teaches physics in the summer, but they might teach other curriculum where they're also doing 2 courses in 10 weeks. And so that academic structure isn't wildly different than what you would be experiencing at a UC campus with all the additional benefits of studying internationally.
If I can share, we often have returnees say things like, yes, they had to remember to study instead of always traveling, so you have to prioritize. But we've also had students say it was nice to only have to focus on physics. Whereas if you're taking physics during the year, you're taking physics alongside another bio class and another thing. So here your sole focus is physics, understanding it, getting it. And for many students, and that has helped them to just be on one field of study at a time.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other bit that you're not having to do when you're on campus is you're not commuting. There's no part-time work. You're sure you're away from home and you can miss your family and friends and your supporters and all of that. But when you're away, you also have that freedom to devote the time as you please. And so the work will take a chunk of that, and then the social / travel / sport and other things will take the rest. But you definitely, students, you're only 10 minutes up in the morning from the lecture theatre and so on, and it makes life a bit simpler in that sense. And I think that frees up space in your CPU for physics more than might do on your campus at home.
Yeah, we had a student, Amber met him as well in person. Damien, who participated last year, Porig,
yeah.
who you might remember
Yeah,
well.
I remember Damien, yeah.
And Damien shared with the students that yes, it was intensive, but they had time on the weekends to explore and in the evenings. So he really enjoyed his experience, and he did it the summer after his first year, and he said that he felt academically prepared enough to do it and do well. So that was a student testimonial.
Yeah, I love that, Porg. You said your life is a little simpler. I didn't think I really thought about that word, but I think that in terms of just life scheduling, it's kind of like you go on vacation and you're like, well, shoot, I don't have the dishes to clean up after dinner, not as much laundry to do. Maybe that's not the best student analogy, but there's all kinds of life responsibilities that you might not have, things that you're responsible for doing in your family structure that you don't have the responsibility of doing abroad. And I think that's a really astute observation. And then as Kelly mentioned, we do have some past UCLA students that I think would also be more than willing for us to share their contact information if any student wants, particularly from UCLA, to speak to a recent UCLA student who participated in this program, Damien, and there are others, but Damien's really awesome, and I think would be more than willing to chat with you all if you want to reach out to me or Kelly. We can make those connections for you. Excuse me.
And as I said in the beginning, I think Antonio is going over next week to California, and he'll be in Irvine and UCLA on the days of the fairs, I think. So he teaches a lot of the program and co-directs it, so he'll be able to give you factual answers in person to detailed questions you might have, and just
Great.
convey
Thank you for that
program.
Shameless plug. Thank you. Yes, I will be there as well. Antonio, myself, Bonnie, sounds like you'll be there. Kelly will be there.
Yeah.
Remind us of the date and time for Irvine and then UCLA, please.
Oh, me or
yes,
Bonnie.
Go ahead, Bonnie.
Our fair, as you can see, is on Monday, November 18th, so they'll have a table there to answer And then the live information session is the next day, and I'm going to pull it up quickly.
That's Tuesday, November 19th.
Yes, at 11:30 a.m. in our student services 2 building. If you've been to the UCI Study Abroad Center, it's just downstairs from our center.
And then the UCLA fair?
We have a session next Wednesday, November 20th from 3:30 p.m.
Yep.
to 4:30 p.m. in Bunch Hall. That's room 10383 on the 10th floor. I'll put it in the chat as well.
Thank you. And then lastly, I just want to remind everyone too that the UCEAP applications do open this Thursday, November 14th at 9 a.m. And we encourage you to submit your application or get it started. That way we'll be able to send you information about events coming up at your campus. I'll put that information in the chat as well.
Thanks, Amy. While you're adding those sessions for next week, there are 2 similar questions about financial aid that I'll kick over to Kelly and Bonnie. I'm just going to read both because I think they're similar enough, but I'm certainly not a financial aid expert. Is this program considered full-time through the lens of will we receive a Pell grant, P-E-L-L, the federal grant? And what is the process for having your FAFSA or financial aid cover this program?
Yeah, I can start. So the process is the same as it would be during the academic year. So submit your FAFSA by the priority deadline. We send a roster to the financial aid office of students who are studying abroad, and they'll package you up, and you can reach out to them for any questions for specific to your aid, because we don't have the fancy software they have to calculate how much aid you can expect. In terms of the Pell Grant, will you receive the full Pell Grant? To be honest, I'm blanking and I don't remember what that looks like. I know that you do get the Pell Grant. I just don't know if it's the full one. You're welcome to email me and I can connect you with the financial aid office. I'll put my email in the chat.
For UCI, same thing, normal process. You don't even have to indicate you're studying abroad when you do the FAFSA because we will later let them know that you're studying abroad. If you were thinking about going in summer 2025, it's the FAFSA you already did. And so once they receive our list of participants, financial aid will revise or offer you, your award. Usually I would say that's around our spring quarter term. So you're waiting a bit, but you could always reach out, because I also don't know the answer to the Pell Grant question, to directly our financial aid office. And UCI's financial aid office has advisors there that work with our study abroad UCEAP students. There's an email you could also use, that's eapfa@uci.edu. I can put that in chat as well.
Bonnie, does Irvine, so summer ends your academic year at Irvine? It does.
Correct,
Kelly,
yes.
and does summer start your academic year at LA? Yeah.
Oh, that's what's different. Okay.
That is, yeah. And so the students probably don't understand the distinction of what I just said, but determining like how the campus looks at summer, whether summer starts your academic year or it ends your academic year, will have bearing on how your financial aid is packaged, because it's either what do I have at the start of the year or what do I have left over at the end of the year? And so that's some of the reason why we need you all to connect directly with your financial aid office to kind of fine tune these financial questions. I wish we could give you more specifics, but it's so dependent upon what kind of aid you have and then how your campus breaks up the academic year. So hopefully you will be able to follow through with the great advice Bonnie and Kelly are providing you all to connect with your campus financial aid office to have those very narrow, I guess, packaging questions answered. Pardon me, I have a bit of a cold. I hope it's not too hard to understand me.
What math, algebra, calculus topics would you recommend we brush up on prior to the program?
So I think where the students encounter difficulty is in the basics, actually. Just simple algebraic manipulations. We use calculus to teach, but we don't use it to examine. But I would say simple algebraic, maybe a little bit of work on exponentials and logs, and then just going back over your very basic principles of calculus, so that when somebody talks about either integrating or differentiating or a slope, you know, plotting a line and finding what the slope means, they're the things I'd recommend. We can always put up a test that you can try and see, you know, we can post a test online for you to try and see where your gaps are. But they're the typical things: basic algebraic operations, manipulations, exponentials and logs, powers, and then just the basic concepts of calculus. They'd be the key things, I think.
Right, thank you so much. I think we'll go ahead and conclude this presentation. I'd like to say thank you to Professor Dunn for joining us today and for your
You're welcome.
presentation. And thank you to Bonnie at UC Irvine and Kelly at UCLA for providing campus detailed information and answering questions today. And Amber, thank you so much for being here to answer questions as well. We hope everyone submits an application or at least reaches out with any questions they have so they have more clarity about what this program offers. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care. Bye now.
Good to see everyone. Bye.